Hey guys, this is Booligan with Airsoft Retreat, BooliganAirsoft.com and Airsoft Insider Magazine. Today, I've got a gearbox in my hands, and this is the gearbox specifically out of my VFC VR16, which I received from Jag Precision. It's had a custom build-up, so on and so forth, as is the tradition of my people. Well, the reason why I have the gearbox sitting in my hand and not installed in a gun is because we are taking a look at a specific component that I recently installed. What we're looking at today is this little guy. This is the ETU, the electronic trigger unit from G&G. Now, this trigger unit is going to be installed in their new line of combat machines, but they also are going to have it available as a standalone unit that you can purchase as an accessory. They sent it over to me to install it in a few gearboxes and to kind of give my thoughts on it and to see if it might be something that would be a decent accessory. A couple of things about the electronic trigger unit. So it actually replaces your entire trigger system. Replaces it with a micro switch trigger assembly and allows you to get rid of certain things, get rid of the trigger shuttle and things like that. So it gives you a very nice, very crisp trigger response, as well as the ability to have programmable features. You could program this to do 3-shot burst or full auto, and it's very easy to do. The installation itself is fairly simple depending on the gearbox that you are putting it in. Now, unfortunately, as we all know, with airsoft, gearboxes can be a little hit or miss depending on how consistent they are with Tokyo Marui's gold standard of how a box should be. And this is designed to that standard. It is designed to the Tokyo Marui standard and, more importantly, to fit in G&G's gearboxes. So G&G installations should be a piece of cake. No problems there. With other gearboxes, you may have to do a little bit of Dremel work, either on the shell or on the housing of the trigger unit itself, and I will have some pictures of this trigger unit so you could take a look at it. Now, the guns that I did test fits in, just to see if the unit fits. I tested it on 2 different generations of JG, and they both fit fine. It fit perfectly on this VFC gearbox. On 2 different generations of Classic Army, both old sport lines as well as the new ones that are in the Apex series, it fits fine. You may need to just shave the front of the gearbox where the trigger unit sits just a smidge just to get it fit in there. SRC gearboxes, older SRC gearboxes, are there new SRC gearboxes? I honestly have no idea. Haven't heard anything from them in a while. That fit, however, you will need to Dremel a bit of the unit to get the pin aligned where the trigger unit sets in. G&P fit absolutely perfectly. So, like I said, it really depends on the gun, on the generation of the gun, on the manufacturer. Just know that you may have to do a little bit of Dremel work to get it to fit. However, it shouldn't be anything really groundbreaking. You should be able to do it relatively easily. The one gun I've been told that it does not install in at all would be the Aries guns because, well, they're Aries and they don't like to work with others. Also, they have their own funky, complicated electronic trigger systems, so putting something like this in honestly would be a little bit of a downgrade because that has a lot more functionality to it than this one does. Now, a few things about this. First, let's do a quick trigger response test on semi-auto. Now, I may dip into full auto here because I'm literally holding the selector plate here, but let's try it out. As you can see, in semi-auto, it works just fine. It has a very good trigger response, and your trigger follow-up is very easy considering it runs just that little micro switch. Now in full auto, let's test it out. Again, full auto works just fine. Now to program it into 3-shot burst mode, it's very simple. You put it in semi-auto, in this case I'm kind of holding it awkwardly here, and you hold the trigger for 10 seconds. And if you look on the unit, there's a little LED, and it will tell you when you can switch it to full auto. So to program it to burst mode, hold the trigger for 10 seconds in semi-auto and then switch it to full auto. That'll then give you burst mode, so let's try that out. We watch the unit, there should be a little LED that lights up. There you go, switch to full auto. Now we should have burst mode. Perfect. So when it's in burst mode, it will complete the 3 shots even if you just tap the trigger once. And it will keep that burst setting until you unplug the battery. You unplug the battery, you plug it back in. If we put it in full auto, it's back in full auto. So, in short, and really in long because this video has been a little longer than anticipated, this thing is relatively easy to install. It'll work in 99% of the version 2 airsoft guns that you are installing it in. I'm sure there's going to be a version 3 unit coming soon, but not right now. It adds some nice features. It adds burst mode. It adds shot completion. The piston is always returning to where it's supposed to be. You get, well, trigger contact protection because you have no more trigger contacts. And the thing works pretty well. I don't have full price information yet, but it should be coming soon. The only major complication that you're going to run into is the same complication that you run into on installing these on pretty much any type of gun, which is you are trying to fit a lot of wires into an area that is not designed to fit a lot of wires. Especially in a few key areas. Down near the bottom of the gearbox where you have to run it along the bottom, it's a very tight fit. As well as in the safety area itself. Now, I believe systems like this you should be able to use without a physical safety, but G&G does still run the physical safety on it. So I kept it in place. However, occasionally it will stick because, well, those wires are taking up space where that safety shuttle normally goes. And, yeah, you know, that is a little bit of an annoyance. It's an annoyance to have to do that. So, again, just if you do it, just plan on having to do probably a little bit of custom work on depending on the gun that you're running. Something like the VFC, it'll be basically drop in. Your biggest issue is going to be finding a place to run all the wires. It does come with their special selector plate, which appears to be designed for 8mm bushings. So if you're putting this in a gun with 9mm bushings, you are going to have problems. So that should, if my memory serves me right, that may actually take out KWAs. So you wouldn't be able to use it with the KWA gearbox because of the selector plate. But again, little custom work. You can Dremel stuff out and make stuff fit. Just know, like with all airsoft parts, a little bit of custom work may be required. The fact that this thing is going to be installed from the factory in the new combat machines is great and should add a lot of functionality to those. And I'm very interested to test those out once those arrive. Many thanks to G&G for sending this over so that we could test it out and see how it works. Many thanks to Jag Precision for sending over the gun that we installed this thing in the first place. And of course, many thanks to you guys for your continued support of Booligan Airsoft and Airsoft Retreat. Be sure to check out all of my full reviews on Booligan Airsoft and Airsoft Retreat, of course. And as always, thanks for watching.